Hello everyone, it's Andrea from Chasing Whimsy. I was just working on an image and I thought it was a great opportunity to give you a little quick demonstration on how I deal with edges of animals that have fur. I also teach this in my compositing course, but I thought that I would give you a little tidbit of freebie information here on how I do it. I have there's probably tons of ways to do it. There are fur brushes available out there, but if you've got something that you just want to quickly make the edges look better, more realistic, based on a cutout either that you've done yourself or purchased stock. This bunny right here that you can see, he's from Photographers Unleashed. I have their spring bunny pack, and you'll see these bunnies in a lot of my work because I really like them. They're a lot of fun. But as you can see, they're cut out. They're very fluffy bunnies, obviously, but the cutouts are smooth around the edges, so they look unblended, unnatural, and so that needs to be fixed. So you can also see some, I think this is I don't know if this is the background showing through or just light on his ears. I always get rid of that on a mask as well. Go around the edges on his, on the ears to just get rid of that little bit of light bit. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw on a mask to this, and then I'm going to show you a really cool way to do the fur on the edges like that. That's really fast and looks great. And I keep meaning to actually resave the bunny every time I do this with this done to him, and I always forget to do it, so I have to keep doing it every time. So I'm going to try to remember to save him this time so that I don't have to do that again. He's already done for me. So let me just get that prepared, and then I'll show you how this is going to go. So I will first deal with those little bits of light. So I'm just going to take my brush really small. This is just the regular soft Photoshop brush, the first one that comes up. And what I want to kind of do is make it really small so I don't get a whole lot of spray going over top of him. I'm just going to start out here and just move in and just get rid of that. I'm not so worried about the fur on his ears. I might actually go bigger too and reduce my brush opacity down to about 20 and just lightly go along the edge like this. And that will just give me a softer, smooth finish. And I can just, with that 20, see I'm just barely bringing my brush over. So basically it's just the spray of the edge of that soft brush that's getting on there. And I'll often do that around the edges of things that I put in, as well as run the blur tool at 100%, very, very small. The blur tool is this guy over here. Underneath where the smudge brush is, and I will actually take that at 100% strength, about this big. You can see how tiny my brush is, and I'll go around the edges of anything that I add in to an image, just because it kind of grabs both things and smears it in together to whatever is over top of it, and it makes a huge difference for how it blends in. If you find something just looks too sharp, it's not melding into its surroundings very well, using that little blur tool brush, tiny like that, works like a treat. It's awesome. So I'm just going to go back and finish this ear here. Whether it's, this is just at 20% again, small, and I basically just want to fade that down. He could have that little bit of white tipping on his ear, maybe, but to me it's got a bluish cast to it that I think is probably from the background that he was cut out from. So I'm just going to get rid of that again. I'm going to make it bigger and just clean that up. And so you can see all around here, this would have been fur, right? But it's been cut off smooth all the way around him. So that's what we're going to do here. I don't worry so much about his ears because there's not tufts of hair on his ears. But all this other part, I'm going to show you a really awesome way to do this. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just back up the edges that are here right now. So I'm going to take my brush, probably at about 50% opacity, and I'm just going to actually remove some of this bunny's edges. Okay, so I'm going to bring him in so he's shorter, or like not as wide. And that's going to get rid of some of that funny edge that I have there anyway. So I just want to go in enough that I'm getting rid of, and already it sort of looks better because I'm getting rid of that fine edge, the really obvious edge that's there. Down here I'm going to be blending him into the ground anyway, so it's not as big of a deal around his tail. But you just keep going around like that and removing a portion of this. You can go in a fair bit because we're actually going to bring that back what we're doing is removing some that we can now use a brush that kind of has a furry kind of a texture to bring back fur on the edge of him over, like from the parts that we've erased. So we're not actually painting anything on, we're taking what was there, but now we're going to add on the fur by using this other brush. And the brush that I like to use is the basic grass brush that you find in Photoshop. This looks like this guy, the little triple grass thing. He's just a basic, one of the regular Photoshop brushes that's in there. And what you want to do is go into your brush adjustments on this. I like to turn off the color dynamics and I turn off the transfer that comes in. The transfer is whether or not it the opacity is adjusted. You can fiddle with these and see what you like, and depending on the animal you might find that you want to have this. So the opacity jitter means that it's going to change opacities with every brush stroke automatically, which can be really cool. If you want something to look darker and lighter, you can get a nice layered effect that way. I don't really care for that on this, and for how small he's going to be in the image, it doesn't really matter. So I'm going to just turn off the flow is the same, how much ink is going on. I'm not going to use those on this at all. The scattering is how far, how they spread out. And I usually like to have a little bit of scattering on there because then it's going to look a little bit more natural than just a straight line. The count gives you, how thick you want on the hair. So I'm just going to leave it at 2, and the scatter is going to be in there. On the shape dynamics, I don't want the size jitter on. I think it automatically comes on with this one. The size jitter changes the size of it. That can work sometimes. On this bunny, I don't want it being used. So I'm actually going to turn off the size jitter so they're all the same size. The angle jitter changes whether the angles, if the brush is flipping around as you're doing it. And I'm going to leave that on just so the hair is kind of going in different directions. The smoothing, I don't think I need to have on because that's going to be not necessary. Then back in the tip shape, this is where you can then angle. By spinning this, you angle which direction it's going to be. So if I'm starting, I actually make my brush a whole lot smaller so you can see which brush it is. It's this guy that looks like this. So if I'm going this, if I'm on this side of the bunny, I actually want the brush to be going this way. And so I'm on the mask right now, and I want to be bringing back what I have erased on this bunny. So I want to switch. I've made a black, traced a black line. You can't really see it on here because it's so small, but now I want to go to white and bring back some of that bunny that I have erased on there. And I might just have to check the size a little bit here to see what's going to look best. But let's just start going, and as you can see, just by running this little brush along there, I'm bringing back the part that we erased, but making it look like fur. And I might want to make it a little bit smaller when I get up here to his neck. So I'm going around and just go over it enough that it starts to look like hair. And instantly you have this perfect fuzzy. Now here I'm at the edge already, so I can't go any further. So I could either pick a color and paint a little bit on, or I need to just back that up. I've gone too far over, so I needed to erase more of it to be able to do this effectively. I'm just going to back up a little bit there and just keep it looser like that, just because I know that was closer in there. So as you move around the bunny, you'll need to adjust the angle of the brush and the size of the brush for the different areas that you're going to be taking off. When I get to this side, I'll need to rotate the brush this direction. Like so, and I haven't erased on this side yet, but I would do the same thing, but keeping the brush going this way. So you can see now, going from this kind of an edge like this, that's just sort of been smoothly cut out, I now have this adorable fuzzy hair that's perfectly cut out as if it had just been photographed right there. And so he'll be sitting there with his perfect fur. I have done no shadows or anything and blending on this guy yet, but that's why I wanted to show you how to do a really cool way to do fur and deal with that, just by erasing back some of the edge that's there and then using that little grass brush. You can use try different brushes. There are fur brushes out there that will do the same thing, but I just thought that was a really cool way to make fur. I wanted to show you. Thanks.